am pleased to present my recommendations for the city's fiscal year 2016 budget. We have really been on a roll lately. The city was just ranked by Gallup as the #1 city in the country for job creation. The report also noted that Salt Lake City is growing as an attractive destination for tech workers with salaries that match much larger cities with a much lower cost of living. Then Forbes magazine published a feature story about our strong local economy and called Salt Lake City, quote, the next national hotspot, citing our economic diversity, our mountain access, and generally high quality of life. As your mayor, of course, I agree. If I were to summarize with one word the financial and economic condition of your Salt Lake City municipal government right now, it would be momentum. Our municipal momentum was on display last month when Google announced that Salt Lake City would be one of only 8 metro areas in the country to get Google Fiber. With the first connections happening this fall, yes, in just a few months, you can expect the addition of Google Fiber to bring more people, jobs, and innovative ideas along with it. I want to give kudos to our outstanding team in city government who worked so hard for nearly a year to make this happen. Our building team is also running at top speed. We are also experiencing a record high value of building permits being issued. In fact, the 2014 valuation for building permits was in excess of $1.8 billion, more than the past 3 years combined. And so far this year, we have already surpassed the $1.2 billion mark with many months left to go. We expect 2015 to follow that trajectory and be record-breaking. But it hasn't always been like this. 7 years ago, when I submitted my first budget to the City Council, we were all in a very different position. Starting in 2008, we faced the worst city budget conditions since the Great Depression. As you may recall, at that time, we didn't know if we'd hit bottom or if our budget crisis was going to continue. We were also very concerned that the decisions we made had to maintain important city services that could create further burden on city residents. That's why my budgets to the City Council have always included a recommendation to keep property taxes flat for home and business owners. The reason I've consistently recommended keeping property taxes flat is because I don't think it is right to place an unfair burden on our residents and small business owners who are least able to afford it. It is simply unfair to ask them to pay disproportionately more. So instead, from 2008 to 2013, we sweated over every single line of the city's budgets and many tough decisions. We made across-the-board budget cuts in departments, eliminated entire departments and positions, and even cut everybody's wages. We also deferred expenses that weren't absolutely necessary in order to get through those lean years. And while those were tough budgets, the silver lining for me was that at the same time we built a more efficient government and prioritized our resources with great fiscal discipline. We, you the City Council and I, asked our departments to get creative, and they responded in kind. And in your role as council members, you have been and remain important leaders as we grow a great American city. I hope you share the pride I feel when looking back over the last 7 years at what Salt Lake City has become, and at the momentum that is carrying us forward. In spite of the belt tightening, we have achieved some great things. And there are many, but here are a few examples. We are now diverting 40% of the waste produced by our residents to beneficial reuse purposes like recycling and compost instead of our landfill. We have brought 8 miles of new rail to Salt Lake City. We are currently building the new Eccles Theater with the help of over $28 million in private contributions. From these and many other examples, it's easy to see why Salt Lake City has so much momentum. Our budget last year in 2015 was very much a transition year. But this year we are seeing significant increases in revenue, much of it additional tax proceeds associated with growth and expansion. This lets us make up for lost ground on projects and priorities that were delayed during the recession. Overall this year, our total city budget is $1.8 billion. And even when taking into account the airport reconstruction, our budget is just under $1 billion. This city budget shows how we plan to continue to do the work of delivering services to our residents and becoming a great American city, one that is sustainable, equitable, and well-run. If you remember my State of the City speech in January, I talked about the work of city government being two-pronged. One is delivering the important services that residents need and expect. The other is delivering on the aspirations of residents and putting efforts and resources behind projects and initiatives that advance the city and its quality of life. There is no doubt that we have tremendous momentum here in Salt Lake City. So how does that translate into a budget recommendation? I'm glad you asked. So let's dig in. My administration is focused on expanding opportunities for all residents. A great American city must create an environment of equal opportunity in every sense of the word. One way we can do that is through a living wage for city employees. While I wish we could mandate a living residence for all residents, the legislature prohibits it, unfortunately. But we can make sure that city employees are paid fairly. In this year's budget, I recommend paying all of our employees a living wage. Let me repeat that. I am recommending the city pay all of our employees a living wage. And this means that salaries of our lowest paid employees will increase to $10.10 an hour. This is the right thing to do, and it is something I wish every employer in our city would do. In addition, this budget would increase salaries overall by a 2% cost of living increase. We will continue to reward our dedication of our employees with proficiency pay increases as well. We have 3,000 incredible employees, and during the lean years, they did more with less and help us continue to serve our residents well. And there are many stories that I could share about their dedication. But tonight, as I reflect on creating equal opportunity for everyone in our city and the incredible contribution of our employees, there's one employee I'd like to tell you about who has inspired me with his unbelievable dedication and personal commitment to creating opportunities for our homeless friends in Salt Lake City. He is Police Deputy Chief Fred Ross. Fred approaches his job with not only a professional duty to preserve life, protect property, and keep the peace, and ensure the safety in our depot district, but also a personal duty to connect with and help those in the most need in our community. Fred's quiet, personal commitment to our homeless friends has influenced our community in countless ways. He has almost single-handedly found jobs for over 150 individuals in the Job a Day program. And his work doesn't end with just connecting our homeless friends with a job. He will often personally find transportation for the people he's helped so they can get to their job. He's even found housing for newly employed but still homeless individuals. Perhaps the best reason why Fred deserves our appreciation tonight is by quoting a member of our homeless community who explained, "Deputy Chief Ross isn't an ordinary policeman. He really cares about me." So Fred, on behalf of the people of Salt Lake City, we thank you for your service. In addition to the salary increases for employees in this year's budget, we have taken a proactive and progressive approach to rising healthcare costs and achieved significant savings again this year. Thanks to the strong support of our partners, PEHP and Mountain Star Network, and the innovation and collaboration of our employees, when it comes to healthcare, Salt Lake City has become a model for other jurisdictions. In terms of investments in our community, I've been inspired by the work of our departments to carefully plan and then implement. Specifically, over the last year, our housing and neighborhood development staff have worked diligently to develop a well-conceived and thoroughly vetted strategy for how we spend pass-through federal grant funds. It's called the Consolidated Plan, and it gives us excellent guidance about where the biggest bang for the buck is. I look to this plan to guide us as we also make decisions about capital improvements. One area the Consolidated Plan focuses on is access to affordable housing. Being able to rent or own your own home in our city should not be cost prohibitive. We've talked a lot about the 5,000 Doors initiative, which has been well received across the city. This budget proposal recommends increasing funding to accelerate the initiative by adding staff to implement specific housing projects quickly and efficiently. The same is true for transportation. The Hive Pass, which provides a low-cost transit pass for all city residents, was a very exciting and innovative pilot program for us last year. We've worked with UTA to revamp the Hive Pass, and I appreciate the council's work on this item. In my budget proposal, we are recommending that $1 million be allocated to keep the Hive Pass program going. And I'd like to highlight a particular focus on investments in our more diverse communities. There are many, but here are a few examples. $100,000 to make the Glendale Youth City program permanent at the Sorensen Unity Center. Startup funds to manage the regional athletic complex in Rose Park. And funding a new staff position in our emergency management division to help reach non-English speaking households with disaster preparedness information. Let's turn now to catching up on the deferred investments that I alluded to earlier. Technology infrastructure has become as important as roads and sidewalks to a well-functioning city. My budget this year includes significant increases in funding to IMS for delayed software and hardware upgrades, as well as a move to cloud-based applications. Additionally, I'm proposing funding for technology upgrades and staffing in many individual departments so that they have the resources they need to work efficiently. Related to this is our commitment to President Obama's recently announced Tech Hire initiative. We have reallocated some internal staff resources to make sure we're taking advantage of this opportunity to connect employers with education institutions and companies that can accelerate the IT employment process. Our city, our nation, has a tremendous need for IT workers, and we're going to be part of meeting that need. We're also proposing to add a few civilian positions in public safety so that sworn officers and firefighters can minimize their time away from patrols and emergency medical response. And as I mentioned earlier, we are seeing unprecedented growth in people applying for building permits of all kinds. While you already approved additional positions in building services to accommodate this incredible expansion, I'm proposing that we add a navigator to help people through the process. Last, and perhaps ultimately most importantly, we're in a position to make significant progress when it comes to being ready for the major earthquake predicted to hit Salt Lake City. The tragic toll of the earthquake in Nepal is a sobering reminder on how important it is for us to focus on being ready when we are struck by an earthquake of a similar magnitude. And make no mistake, we are overdue. A major earthquake hits the Salt Lake City segment of the Wasatch Fault on an average of 1,300 years, with the last one occurring 1,400 years ago. As experts who have studied our region explain, there is a 1 in 450 chance that the big one will hit the Salt Lake City segment of the Wasatch Fault in the next year. Even more troubling is the prediction of what would happen to our city when the big one hits if we don't take preventive measures now. Depending on the time of day it occurs, Salt Lake City could see as many as 3,000 fatalities. The city's emergency preparedness team warns us that we may be dealing with over 850 collapsed buildings, most of which are homes, that would be rendered uninhabitable following an earthquake, along with a displaced population in the tens of thousands. Economically, it's expected that direct building losses in Salt Lake City alone would be upwards of $15 billion. If there's one thing that keeps me up at night, it's thinking about Salt Lake City's vulnerability to a major earthquake. So today, I'm announcing a major expansion of our Be Ready Salt Lake City program. I'm recommending that we spend $500,000 this year to help Salt Lake City homeowners get their homes prepared for an earthquake, and that is a down payment for our future safety. Reducing the number of homes and businesses with unreinforced masonry is a massive undertaking, but it is critically important. We will need the help of public and private partners, but Salt Lake City can take the lead. It will be a matter of life and death when the earthquake comes our way. And before we move on from this topic, I'd like to pause and ask everyone to consider making a donation to earthquake relief efforts in Nepal. There are many reputable relief organizations, and two such groups with Utah ties are collecting donations to help Nepal recover. These are the Nepalese Association of Utah and the Appa Sherpa Foundation. So I encourage everyone in our city, in our community, in our region to please give to help address that tragic condition. On a happier note, the proposal in front of you reflects an expanded investment in our green spaces, energy efficiency, and reducing air pollution and our carbon footprint. For instance, we've added almost $750,000 to enhance the city's urban forest, and we recommend an increased contribution to the Mountain Accord process. And while it's not part of this budget proposal, my team is also working at your request to bring you a plan for a Salt Lake City Parks, Trails, and Open Space initiative. Throughout May, we'll be conducting a broad and inclusive public engagement process to generate ideas and seek feedback about what people in Salt Lake City value most, and about specific projects they'd like the city to invest in and want to pay for. We will use past plans, cost estimates, and the results of our public engagement process to present parks, trails, and open space project recommendations for a potential bond election this fall. This effort is another great example of the incredible momentum we have going in Salt Lake City right now. On the energy efficiency front, this budget adds a new position to provide energy facility commissioning for all city buildings. This is the next step in implementation of our city energy project, and the city is leading by example. I fully expect this position will also help us meet our carbon reduction goals. The air quality impact of our cars and trucks will be improved as well. We are proposing to accelerate the conversion of our fleet by spending an additional $750,000 to replace our older stock with clean fuel or high-efficiency vehicles. This is in addition to the one-time funds from the current fiscal year. Updating our current fleet is a clear case of an investment paying off in lower emissions immediately. This budget proposes funding to complete the changeover of our two-stroke engine inventory that we started last year. These are only a few of the changes I'm proposing this year. For those of you following at home, you can see the complete recommendations at www.slcmayor.com. I'm so proud of our team in City Hall for how we have managed the city these past several years. And I'm excited about what we have ahead of us this year. The momentum we have is unparalleled. I know all of you share the pride I feel when Salt Lake City continues to be recognized for all of the progress we've made in recent years, in spite of the tough budget times we've been through. That chapter is behind us, and we're well positioned for the future. I look forward to working with you in the coming months to finalize the city's next annual budget. Thank you.